I just was always a wild, loose kid in my neighborhood. I just always went for mine. I maintained myself. I knew how to hustle, and I definitely wasn't no punk.
These little running around like I wasn't brought up. I brought up toting slammers. Like so, my belt had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like
the first game, my nigga Punch Jim was popping, homie. Capo, I still fuck you already know. Shout out to Melly and everybody. I still fuck with my in Harlem. It's all good.
Fame and street respect. Two worlds that look the same from the outside, but live by completely different rules. In hip-hop, a lot of artists try to balance both, but sometimes that balance breaks. And one night in New York City, Raw Diggs made sure Jim Jones learned that lesson the hard way. This wasn't no rumor from social media, no gossip passed around online. Nah, this one came from the pavement, from every block, every barbershop, every corner where people still talk about what really went down. At that time, Jim Jones was flying high. Dipset was still ringing through the streets. Ballin' had him shining. Harlem loved him, and the whole city knew that Vamp Life Wave was real. But see, in Brooklyn, respect ain't given, it's earned. And that's where a man named Raw Diggs stepped in and changed the whole energy. Now, if you're from Brooklyn, you already know the name. Raw Diggs wasn't just some rapper trying to get his buzz up. He was a certified street general. His name carried real weight. Before any mic, before any camera, they called him a project legend, an ex-con, a man who had already survived the kind of stories most rappers only talk about in their rhymes. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, but when people said Raw Diggs, voices got lower. The air got heavy. He moved with discipline. A code. One of those rare types that the old heads respected because he came from that cloth where words actually meant something. So when word got around that Jim Jones was moving through Brooklyn, talking slick, acting like Harlem was the only crown in New York.
I'm from the era where we sold the drugs, we didn't use them per se. That was the quote-unquote.
It all started one night at a club in Brooklyn, an industry event, part music, part street. The kind of place where the VIP section sits a few feet away from the real block energy. Jim Jones showed up deep. Harlem dripped out in designer, bottles flying, jewelry glowing under the club lights. He brought that uptown energy, loud, confident, royal, but something about the vibe wasn't right. Word is, his crew started bumping heads with some Brooklyn locals. Over seating, over bottles, maybe even over respect. And those locals? They weren't just anybody. They were connected to Raw Diggs, so when the whispers reached Raw that some Harlem cats were acting reckless in his section, he didn't send a message. He pulled up himself, and when he walked in, man, the whole energy shifted. Witnesses say the whole room froze. The music was still going, but it felt quiet. You could feel that tension in the air. Heavy, silent, powerful. Raw didn't need to make an entrance. He just walked through the crowd, calm, steady, eyes locked. He looked right at Jim Jones and asked, "You good, homie? You know where you at?" The room went cold. Jim tried to stay cool. You could see he wasn't trying to make it a scene, but Raw kept it real with him. He said, "Ain't no cameras out here. Respect goes both ways." That line hit different. It wasn't a threat, it was a reminder. There wasn't no fight, no yelling, no swinging bottles. Just that check. That moment that reminded everybody in the room, Brooklyn don't play about respect. Jim nodded. He played it smart. He wasn't soft. He was just smart enough to recognize when another man had the room. And when Raw walked back out, the silence left behind said everything. It was like watching Harlem's king get humbled, not by violence, but by presence.
You blood from this day on, when you see us throw it up, you be putting way more work in than half these bloods that be out here and things like that. So you the homie now. When you see us throw it up, that's just that.
Ronald Herron, that was Raw's government name. Born and raised in the Gowanus houses, Brooklyn. Before rap, before fame, he was already known, not for wildness, but for structure. Raw wasn't some loose cannon. He represented that old New York street code where the rules were simple: loyalty, respect, and discipline. If you crossed that line, you got checked, not because of ego, but because order mattered. So when Jim's entourage disrespected locals that night, it wasn't personal, it was cultural. Harlem Flash versus Brooklyn Foundation, and Raw just made sure that line stayed clear. The next morning, that story was everywhere. Not on TMZ, not on blogs. I'm talking about the real grapevine. The streets. And the crazy part? Everybody who told it the same way. Raw never raised his voice, never made a scene, never even flexed his position. He was calm and too calm, and that's what made it legendary. Raw Diggs pressed Jim Jones in Brooklyn. That's how it was said. Word for word, it became street folklore. The night Brooklyn humbled Harlem. Even years later, when Raw got hit with that heavy federal case and disappeared behind bars, people still brought that story up as proof. Proof that Raw Diggs was real before rap ever called him famous. Jim never spoke on it publicly. No interviews, no denials, nothing. And in a world where every rapper wants to clap back, that silence said more than any diss record ever could. Those close to him said it changed how he moved. After that, you didn't see Jim pulling up deep to every Brooklyn spot like before. He focused more on business, music, money, and less on trying to prove something in the streets. That night humbled him in a way that didn't need violence. It was a wake-up call. Fame don't erase the rules. Even locked away, Raw Diggs' legend lived on. His music still floated through the streets, but it was the stories that kept his name alive. He became a symbol, a mix of fear and respect. Calm, loyal, disciplined, but when tested, dangerous. That balance made him stand out in a city full of names that came and went. Other rappers started referencing him in their bars, in interviews, in conversations about real New York energy, because that's what he represented. The last breath of that authentic era when your name meant more than your followers. That night with Jim Jones wasn't just a rumor, it became a moment in hip-hop folklore. The night when fame met realness, and realness didn't blink. See, this wasn't about beef, it was about principle, about how a man carries himself when the lights are off and the cameras aren't rolling. Raw Diggs didn't need to flex, didn't need to post, didn't need to prove nothing. He just was. His presence alone spoke louder than any record deal or viral headline. He reminded the whole city that respect doesn't care about fame. And that night, Jim Jones, one of Harlem's finest, learned the oldest rule in the book. Money can buy followers, fame can buy attention, but respect? That has to be earned face to face. Raw Diggs' story isn't here to glorify the streets. It's here to remind us what the streets really mean. It's a cautionary tale wrapped in honor and consequence. The real ones, the ones who make it through that life, they don't move reckless. They move with loyalty, integrity, and discipline. They don't shout, "I'm real." They just live it. Every rapper, every hustler, every dreamer wants that kind of respect. But few can live by that code without getting lost in it. And that's the message right here. You can't fake real. You can't buy respect. You can't talk your way into being solid, because the streets don't bend for fame. They never have. They never will. At the end of the day, respect. That's the only real currency that ever mattered. Beat fades, cinematic pause, and in the city that never sleeps, that's one lesson nobody ever forgets.
The first game, my nigga Punch Jim was popping, homie. Cat boy, I still fuck with you already know. Shout out to Melly and everybody. I still fuck with my in Harlem. It's all good.
You blood from this day on. When you see us throw it up, you be putting way more work in than half these bloods that be out here and things like that. So you the homie now. When you see us throw it up, that's just that.
These little running around. Like I was brought up toting slammers. Like, so my belt had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like,
I'm from the era where we sold the drugs, we didn't use them per se. That was the quote unquote. I just was always a wild, loose kid in my neighborhood. I just always went for mine. I maintained myself. I knew how to hustle, and I definitely wasn't no punk.
The first game, my nigga Punch Jim was popping, homie. Cat boy, I still fuck with you already know. Shout out to Melly and everybody. I still fuck with my in Harlem. It's all good.